Yesterday, I published a video about how to create this amazing effect using geometry node. I was just experimenting with it a little bit more and I came up with this amazing effect. And I couldn't help but share it. So before we even get into this video, I just want to say if you have not watched the original video, please go ahead and watch it because I'm not going to recreate the geometry node tree again. If you want to learn how to do it, it's there in that video. The link is in the description and you should be getting a card at the top right now. But yeah, once you've watched it, come over here and then we can start. All right, then let's get right into it. Okay, so here's how I did it. I basically went to mixamo.com and I downloaded a character from there and a dancing animation. If you guys don't know how to download stuff from mixamo.com, well, the link for a video on the entire process is also there in the description. You guys can just simply check it out. It's like a 5 minutes video and should be able to guide you through the entire process of downloading and importing the character into Blender. So we will go ahead and import our character in Blender. For that, I'll just click on File, Import, and I downloaded it into .dae format, and that's the one that I'm gonna search for. So they're in my download folder, and this is the character that I downloaded, right? So as soon as I do that, can you see that there's a character that is appearing here? Now the textures doesn't work right away as soon as you download them. So I'm gonna go to the shading tab and click on my character and just X out of the texture because we are actually not going to use the texture that comes with it. Let me hide this original one because we are not going to use that, and I'm also going to hide it from the render as well, right? So the very first step that we'll actually do is like if I go into the edit mode, can you see that there are so many vertices, and the process actually goes ahead and creates edges and icospheres on their vertices, right? Now currently there are way too many of them, so we have to reduce the number. So I'm going to add a decimate modifier to our character. So click on, make sure your character is selected and you're not doing it on your armature. So click on your character, go to your decimate modifier and reduce the collapse value to 0.01. And I think this worked really well for me. So I'm going to go with that value again. So now we have less vertices, even though it's not showing up. Again, you can apply this. I'm not going to do it, but that's totally fine. So now the next thing that we'll do is we'll move to our geometry nodes. So let's go to geometry nodes tab and I'm going to click on new. Now we are not going to create the geometry nodes again, but for some reason it doesn't let me add the original one without clicking on new, right? So I have to click on new and then select the original geometry nodes that we created. Now, as soon as I do that, it disappears. Don't worry about it because if you guys remember, we used a mesh primitive in the original video to actually create that effect, right? So we're going to delete that and we're going to use the original geometry for this one, right? So I'm going to go ahead and connect it back. And as soon as I do that, the effect's in here, but it's just very subtle so that you guys cannot see it. Even before we proceed, I just want to call it out, right? So the stacking of your modifiers matters here a lot. Like for example, the decimate modifier needs to be before your geometry node modifier. And if you have not done it that way, you'll just end up getting a really weird, right? So just make sure that it's stacked in the correct way. So we've got decimate modifier and then the geometry nodes modifier. All right. So now if I just zoom in over here, I can see that those points and those edges are there, but they are really small. So we'll have to increase the size, right? So I'll come here and come to my curve circle and just increase the value to, I think 0.5 is what I went with. And as soon as I do that, can you see there's a cage-like structure that's not covering your character. It looks pretty cool. Now, the next thing that we'll do is we'll come down and check our icosphere, that's instance. And we're going to go ahead and increase the value to 0.9. And as soon as I do that, it's all ready. It looks just like the animation that I created, right? And I've already downloaded the dancing animation. So if I play it, it will start dancing. All right. So now if you remember that in the previous video, we created 3 different materials for faces, points, and edges, right? So we're going to take the material for edges. But before I even mess with the material, I just want to do a quick setup. So let's go to the camera mode. It just looks weird. So we're going to bring the camera closer to a character and let's just bring it up a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and add a plane here, scale it up a little, add a new texture. We're going to name it plane and let's bring down the brightness. Going to make it metallic. bring up the specular and reduce the roughness to 0.2. I want a little bit of reflections coming in from my character. Now, as you can see, these three planes are actually giving out light into our scene. So I'm gonna delete one of those. I don't need it. And just rotate this plane by 90 degree on the Z axis. Bring it right next to our character. So just make sure that it's aligned and the light is coming onto the character. You can scale it down as well if you want. Now there is a side light coming into our character, and also just reduce the size of this plane at the top. All right, so I think we are ready with our lighting and our structure. Now there's this thing that I want to show you is that if you go to the edges material, the brighter you make the material, the more light it's going to reflect inside your character, and the darker it is, the less light it's going to reflect, right? So as per your preference, you can just simply go ahead and tweak it. And that's about it. I hope you guys like this video and it was helpful. If you did, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.